I'm here with Lieutenant Baker. And Lieutenant Baker, do you want to tell us some of your background on who you are for the audience?
I am from Maryland, originally from San Diego. Parents were in the military, so I was pretty much raised in Maryland for most of my life. Went to Towson, crossed down UMD, graduated last year. What was it, 2024? Yeah. I commissioned in 2024 in May as a cyber officer.
This video is basically going to entitle going through your 500 year. You know, if you are a current 500, or just due to Dahmer circumstances, that is your route. This video is pretty much going to be made to inspire you to keep going. Baker, what was your reasoning on why you were 500 during your go-around?
When I joined AFROTC in 2019, and I didn't really know what was going on. I just showed up. I didn't even have paperwork. I didn't go to that session that they held. I didn't even know it was a thing. First day it was just bad. It was bad. It was just not good. So EA comes around. I don't really know what's happening. I'm just kind of there, and they're like, "Oh, you have to qualify to the next step." I had no idea what they were talking about. I went through it anyway, but I was told your AFROTC is not that serious. Just take it, and then blah blah blah. So I think I got a 0 on both sections. It was really bad. I think I had a 1 on reading. But I'm pretty sure I got a 0, big donut on math. And yeah, I didn't go through. My PFA was trash. My grades are ridiculous. That's the reason why I got kicked out. So in 2019, I went up for it. I didn't get the EA, and then they said, "Oh, by the way, Captain Rager was like, hey, you can't come back. Your grades are trash." He said you shot yourself in the foot. That's exactly what he said. It's so funny to think back on now. He actually he was my commissioning officer, so that was a full circle moment for me. But yeah, that was pretty much it. It wasn't good.
And what was your reaction just processing all of that, doing the time and just kind of hearing that, especially from the commander?
You mean how I figured out I didn't get an EA, or that I shot myself in the foot?
Yeah, both. Just the reaction of all of it.
So, Colonel Jantz actually sent me an email saying, "PSP, unfortunately, you were not selected." And I remember, I got the email, and I just sat there, and I was like, damn, that sucks. This sucks. And then there was a big group chat with all of the now lieutenants, most of them. Now most of them lieutenants were just like, "Oh my God, we all got EAs. And I had to sit there and be like, "Oh, I didn't get it." So that was awkward, very humbling experience. And then as far as Captain Rager telling me I shot myself in the foot, he's actually the reason why I came back after I got dropped from the program. He pretty much told me exactly what I need to do to pretty much be where I'm at now. So, yeah, so he told me step by step, this is where you need to do. And then I did exactly that. I took the year off. I focused on my grades. I focused on my physical fitness, and came back and got the EA second time around.
But during that 500 year, what were the challenges going on, just going through the process that you had to go through it all over again?
I think the challenges were more emotional than they were they're more emotional than they were actually getting the work done, because Captain Rager already did that work for me. Rager told me hey, this is what you need to do, so do it. So I think a lot of it was there's 3 types of people that you're going to be around, right? The people that are going to look down on you because you didn't get your EA at first, and you'll have people that are in the middle who are kind of indifferent. They're okay. And then the last people that are there for you, want to be, and help you through the process. And you just got to figure out who's who. Most people don't really care about your situation as much as you think they do. You're the one that actually cares that much about it, So it just depends on how emotionally ready you are, I guess, and composed, and just willing to, put your head down and just work. Yeah, I think that was the hardest part. But honestly, I when I was at 500, I wasn't even around, honestly. I only showed up for a lead lab, then I was gone. You didn't see me. I was a ghost because I had work to do. I had to go to work. I had to do my schooling. I had to make sure I was busy. So my 500 year was just focusing on me, really, and less about the program, unironically.
Yeah. So in addition to that, would you say that, current 500s or previous 500s or 500 in the future, they can really focus more on themselves, academics, or can they take more of a mentorship role?
I didn't mentor anybody. I'll be completely honest with you, and that's my reality. That took less time away from me and what I wanted to do. And it's not like anyone really asked. I think during Lead Lab, I would, do what I needed to do. But it felt like more people were pulling me towards those roles, not like people were actually asking for help on the side. But also, actual leadership, like they're there to help you. Like they want to see you succeed. They want to see you win, but you got to put that effort in. So ask them, what was the reason, and they'll tell you.
So I want to say this, now that you're a lieutenant, if you could go back in time and do it all over again as a 500, what would you do differently?
If I could stop myself from becoming a 500, I would do that. But as a 500, I think I played it perfectly. I did my work while I was there as a 500, and I left. Got my grades up, PFA. I think I did everything perfectly. I wasn't chasing anything.
And for those who probably feel that they might be struggling, they might be kind of in a situation where they don't know if they want to continue ROTC or just focus on school, what would you say to them? Should they continue or should they go back to school?
Well, first I'll say that's a question that they have to answer for themselves. I can't give them the answer for that. That's a big question. And only the person in the situation can answer that question. But what I can say is that there's only about a 14%, only 14% of your original class when you were a 100 actually commissioned. About 10% actually commissioned. So your 100 class, looking at your commissioning class, very tiny. It's changed, right? So one thing that that's just one indicator, right? So it's not a club that is just handing out participation awards around. Like 10 to 14% is kind of low, extremely low.
Yeah.
I'll also say since I've been in the blue for a couple of months now, I'm noticing that there's a lot of high value officers. Just looking at my peers, like they're really good at what they do. It shocked me to see how capable people are at doing something that I prided myself on doing. I was like, oh, she really knows what they're doing. Which shows you like there's a caliber to hit. There's a caliber that your college is looking for, because when you get into the blue, like, there's a standard. There's an unspoken standard of how you are, I guess to say. Mm-hmm. So with saying that, cadre knows what they're doing, and if you put in that effort, they'll see it and they'll work with you. Trust me, they'll work with you. But you have to put in that work. You have to want it. Like things are more likely to be taken away from you, way more than anything of value given to you for free. Like that's just what it is. So I think being an officer is awesome. I love it, but I had to grind. I had to work for it. I had to work my ass off for it. So it's up to you. It really is sink or swim if you want it or not. If you really want it, you'll get it. That's just what it is. If you're, for the lack of a better term, if you're lazy, then you won't get it. There's also other things like job murder, just not the right timing, but then also financial stress of being a 500. I also had to go through that, but where there's a will, there's a way. You talk to cadre, they'll make it work. If they don't, they don't. Right? But for the most part, from my view, you ask, you receive. That's just what I've learned. I guess the last two things that kind of keep me consistent with any dream. My pops always said to me growing up, win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter the outcome. Like, as long as you put in your most effort, you left your best for it, win, lose, or draw, it does not matter the outcome. It's going to hurt if it doesn't go the way you want, but win, lose, or draw, it does not matter what happens as long as you put your best foot forward, you put a lot of effort into it. Then also, something that I like to say to myself is stay consistent to the plan, right? So for me, like, once there's like a goal in my head, I'm very stubborn, and I just move in that direction. So if that's what you want to be an officer, figure it out. But remember, it's like 10%. 10% of you guys from your 100 class are getting selected, and that's just what it is. So make yourself an undeniable cadet. Do not make it harder for them to say no to you. That's the game. That's the game. Make them have to deliberate with themselves. So do I really want to cut this cadet? He or she's really putting this effort in, making it really hard, because cadre can move mountains. They can. You just have to give them some room to do it. Give them a reason to trust you. Give them a reason to trust you. You might not be perfect. They're not looking for perfect. They're looking for leaders. I promise you, I've been in. There's a lot of people that are like super technical, but they don't know how to lead people. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to be themselves, So that's just my advice. Speaking for me, I'm not the most technical sound dude, but I've met lieutenants here, and it's like I would not want to follow you. So be that cadet that's also technically savvy, but also has those skills of being a leader. Trust me, it'll take you a long way.
Today I have Lieutenant Vu with me. Lieutenant Vu, can you give a background on who you are?
Yeah, I am a former George Mason student. I majored in cybersecurity engineering. Graduated last year, 2024, from Det 330, and was a former AS 500 cadet.
Yes, and the topic of this video is for 500s, current 500s, just how to deal with that, or just, some suggestions and thoughts of going forward. And can you tell us about your story about why you weren't selected or what was the reason for becoming a 500?
For me, I think it was kind of straightforward in a sense that I kind of already knew why I didn't get selected. So there was a criteria where you just had to pass the PFA. And so if you didn't, you were just automatically not going up for the board. And so for me, I didn't pass the PFA, and I knew that going in. And so to me, I kind of already made sense that I wasn't going to get it. And so I went ahead and during that whole AS 500 year, got my PT stuff together. And next year, I was able to get it luckily. Another thing that happens that I consider myself kind of lucky also is that I had a peanut allergy, and prior to that, I didn't like actually try to eat any peanuts or anything. And so the Air Force was like, "Hey, you said you had a peanut allergy. You can do two things. You can automatically just say no, you're good, and that's it. I'll be done with the Air Force, or you can challenge that and go to an allergist and actually have them perform those tests on you to verify that you do still have those allergies or whatnot." And so I went to the allergist and was able to pass it somehow, and I figured that I actually grew out of my peanut allergy. So I was lucky on that part, but the part for the PFA and the PT stuff, those things were in my control, and I I just didn't do it. I just didn't, I guess, take it seriously enough, and so it was kind of like a thing on me, and where it was more self-induced rather than kind of like a quote unquote luck kind of thing to get chosen for the EA.
Yeah. And during that time when all of that happened, what was your reaction of just thinking that you have to go through this all over again? What was the reaction like, especially as a college student?
My reaction, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really feel um, like unmotivated or anything like that. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I just have to do it again, which I kind of have to get used to because I'm not gonna lie, you have to go through the whole thing again, right? The whole 200 year, which kind of sucked in a sense. But for later reasons, I'll talk about later, it didn't actually suck. But I think it was a good opportunity in that I actually still learned a lot, and it was able to kind of show and find my leadership style, because when you're in that 500 year, you kind of know the ropes of everything in the detachment, I'd like to say. And so being able to actually mentor and guide the future cadets that are coming in was a good aspect for me.
Yeah, and actually going directly into that, during the 500 year, did you actually feel more of a mentorship role? Were there more challenges? What was the perspective like being a 500 that year?
Yeah, I loved it. I think like all the people that were in my 500 year as well, so like Frayer, McDuffie, Savoy, Baker, and all that, we were all more tight knit than I guess you could say when we were previously like 200s, because we were all under the same circumstance. Um, but that whole mentorship thing, it's it's something that I enjoy personally. I like guiding people and explaining things in a way that they would understand and not just kind of blurt everything out, just word vomit. And so just kind of taking on the mentorship role is something that I enjoy the most. I will say the one of the things that was a little difficult to overcome at some points were that was that your peers who have gotten EAs, they were now your POC, right? So now there's a disconnect between the POC and the GMC in that aspect. And so the difficult part was that you might have your peer be your flight commander. And so keeping that professional image might be like a bit difficult because, if you're friends with somebody and your friend becomes a flight commander, it's kind of weird, right? Because now they're yelling at you, but then they're friends. But as long as you lock in and you understand that is their job during lead lab, then generally it's not a concern. So as long as you can switch it on, know that lead lab is a time to lock it on, learn, and then once lead lab is over, then they can kind of be your friend again in that sense. But other than that, I think I'd like to say that's probably the only difficult thing that I can imagine, to be honest.
Yeah, and in terms of that, academic wise, you no longer have to take 200 or even 100 courses. You could just kind of just go through your college career. Was that way easier, just coming to lead lab and then pretty much just being free to do whatever?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like one actually like the positive points about it is all you have to do is just go to lead lab and then go to PT after and then go home and then the rest of the day is yours. I liked it a lot because I didn't have to worry about what I was doing in air science and whatnot. But that was the only thing I had to worry about was lead lab and then PT and then you go home, which I actually enjoyed. And it definitely made things easier in terms of course load and all that because like I said, you have to worry about extra assignments maybe that might pop up in 200 or whatever. And so you were more focused on your academics in college, I'd say. And it gives you more time to do anything else too, like extracurriculars or just getting more help on whatever you need.
Yeah, and I'd just like to ask this question for perspective. If you could go back and just do it all over again, what would you change? Because I know in your case it was more fitness, and obviously you can't control allergy. But what would you change for those out there who would like to know?
Personally, well, for me, obviously, yeah, the PFA thing was huge. I would say get on, like, try starting to train now. And I'm not saying you gotta be like, David Goggins or whatever, right? But I'm saying, at least, you know, get into a fitness regimen, right? Just do some push-ups, some sit-ups, like run for a little bit. And I guarantee you all those smaller increments will add up over time. And you definitely want to do that starting early rather than starting late, because then you could keep adding more and more until you can actually pass that. As far as things that are kind of out of your control, with my peanut allergy, the one thing I want to say is don't stop until the Air Force tells you no. Like for me, right? They gave me an option to, battle it out or just take the L and just say, nah, I don't want to move on, right? And so I kept going, and even if let's say I did know that I couldn't pass allergy tests or whatever, I still would have tried it anyways, until they like actually told me no. Until then, yeah, just keep going at it.
Yeah, and I think that also ties in to those who are struggling currently or future-wise with their decision if they want to keep going with the program or not. All of those points tie in greatly of just, keep going, keep training, look at it as a perspective of you're more of a leader now and you have a really good opportunity here to propel yourself higher. Would you give any advice in terms of those who might struggle with actually making that decision that they really don't know if they want to extend the fifth year and they're kind of still struggling just to see how it would be beneficial for them to go through it all over again?
Right. What I would say is don't compare yourself to others ahead of you, but you to your past self, right? It can be a bit discouraging, seeing all your peers be ahead of you. But if this is something you set for yourself, this is a goal that you set for yourself, and you want to earn those butter bars, you will just do anything to get it, right? So if you just focus on yourself and the end goal that you've set, it doesn't matter where or when or what the conditions are, you'll push it through the end. And who knows, maybe that class that you end up being a part of might be like the best class you've ever met and been through. And so I personally would just stick to that plan that you have, keep going until the end, and um, yeah, push through it. And if things don't work out, I'm a big believer of things happen for a reason, and just keep going at it and move on.
So today I'm with Lieutenant Fraher, and Lieutenant Fraher, can you tell us a little bit about yourself on who you are?
Absolutely. So, hey everyone. So I was a cadet starting in the fall of 2019. I commissioned in the winter of 2024. So if you're counting, that's 5.5 years of ROTC. So I was here for a little while. Uh, in that, I was a crosstown student my first year. I was at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and then I transitioned during COVID, which was full of challenges in and of itself. And then I spent 4 years at UMD. I started out as a engineering major. I was a mechanical and electrical engineering double major, and then I switched over to math my junior year, and then that's what I ended up graduating with was a math degree. And then my junior year, yeah, I believe it was my junior year. So I was not selected during the first selection process and became a 500. That was during the big COVID bow wave. Um, but I was part of the first COVID bow wave of EA Select, so that was a really rough year. I think it was at 55% drop rate, so it was about around a 45% selection rate. And then following year came back, tried to make the most of it, and I guess I did because they picked me at that time. And then for the spaceport selection, I ended up getting picked up for that. Ended up getting drawn into the space for then another 2 years, and ended up commissioning. That's probably the most condensed form of that I could mention.
Yeah, Lieutenant Fraher, you have been around the debt for a minute from what I remember. But actually, can we double back? You were in the COVID era. How was that like as a cadet?
Oh man, God, any cadet you talk to that was a cadet during COVID has a very unique experience or memory of what exactly it looked like. But I think most everyone remembers online Lee Lab, which was staring into a camera and standing up and saluting and having them check your gig line while having to like lean over the camera. That was a really strange thing, like standing in your room at 5:30 in the morning and saluting your laptop to report in for an inspection, and then they had to check your shoe shine and you had to like lift your foot in the air. It was insane, absolutely insane.
I
So
cannot
I
imagine
wouldn't
doing that.
recommend it. Yeah, I really hope, regardless of what situation happens in the future, that they don't ever try to do that again. It was terrible. Doing a facing movement with like my headphones connected and then like ripping the cord out. It's
Yeah,
absolutely terrible.
and I can only imagine, as you said, the numbers were probably just low just that year overall, just due to COVID. So what motivated you to come back just to do it all over again, knowing that, well, you couldn't really, determine your process because everything was online and, the board probably was just cutting down on people. What was your process of coming back to do it all over again?
Yes, I would probably recommend to any cadet that doesn't get selected the first time around, just to take a couple weeks, process it, think about it, talk to family. For those cadets, like I was one of the cadets that was on scholarship at the time, and if you were a high school scholarship cadet and you didn't get selected, then you also lost your scholarship. So that was really traumatic financially for me at the time. So I would recommend just taking a couple weeks, processing it, talking to close friends and family. I would even, take some time. You're going to have a lot of cadets who are coming up to you and might try to justify it, be like, "Oh man, you should have gotten selected," or "I can't believe this happened," or trying to give you a shoulder to cry on. And that's certainly helpful, and that's the right thing to do for those cadets who do get selected as well. But you also want to let your, or you want to let them have their moment, make sure that they get time to also enjoy, that victory for them because that's a huge deal for them as well. And it also just gives you some time to process and think about what next steps are. But my reaction after those couple of weeks of just thinking over what had happened, trying to get some feedback on what I could have done better and everything else associated with that, was just to come back aggressive, hard charging, excited and ready to make it happen the next go around. I was really angry after not getting selected just because of that situation, and I let that anger probably carry me throughout the summer into the following semester of just trying to bring a whole lot of energy and excitement and preparation into what I did because I realized there's so many little things I just wasn't even thinking about, and just in terms of preparation for Lee Lab, involvement in the debt, some of the small outside factors, everything from just increasing my FA score to GPA, all those other things, just a bunch of factors that I realized I'd not really put my full effort into, or areas that I might have struggled with that I wasn't really thinking about either. So it was really taking a concerted effort to analyze and focus on those growth areas, those areas that I was struggling with, and to put a lot of effort into figuring that out. I talked to a lot of people. I went and talked to Cadre after. I probably talked to just about every member of Cadre. Including at the time Colonel Jantz, who was the debt commander, about what are some things that I could have worked on, what are some things I could look into. I talked to a bunch of cadets, POC, and all my fellow GMs who were selected, just talking to them about what are some things you saw maybe that I wasn't really looking into, and kind of I had a really strange situation because that year. So I was that double major, and they had some issues in classifying my major at the time. And at the end of the day, my overall point selection, I ended up getting selected by a whole 1 point. So they told me I was the next cadet in the entire region to get selected, and I was like, that's not really helpful. It's not great to tell a cadet who just lost a scholarship and everything else, hey man, but you were just that close. I was like, to me, I might as well have missed it by 50 points and been the lowest ranked cadet in the entire region, because it wouldn't really have changed anything for my situation. But even going through that, a lot of the feedback was basically cadre and cadets saying, they didn't see enough of me, or I wasn't involved enough, or whatever it was, or they didn't see me really take the position I was given in the wing, really elevate it and make it my own at the time. So it was trying to really define myself and figure out what my leadership style was, the approach I was going to take to ROTC, and finding a better plan and approach that following semester to really make it happen, really to stand out, to support others, to be both a really, really good follower and try to learn and absorb as much as I could, even though I'd been in the detachment already for 2 years at that point, as well as trying to be a really good leader. I think a lot of GMC think that being a GMC is exclusively a followership role, so they don't really they don't really give a lot of consideration to how they can lead the cadets around them or just be a leader in their own right. But a 500 really gets the unique experience. 500s being the cadets who are chosen to come back. They get a really unique experience of being a mentor while also being a peer to the entire 200 class. And so just try to really figure out how that role works. You're going to have a lot of friends who are going to be your trainers. You're going to have a lot of people that are, again, trying to help you out and that know that, this is realistically your last chance to make this happen and to get a shot to get into the upperclassmen POC status. So they're going to be looking out for you, and they're going to be trying to take care of you. That's your job to make sure that while they're doing that, you're also doing your part. You're standing up and stepping up for all those things that you might have been concerned about in the past. But again, really try to be a leader in your own right as a 500, and also try to mentor those other cadets who might be afraid or nervous or really stressed and anxious about boards and everything else like that. Try to be some source of comfort for them, and try to also help them be in a situation where they don't have to be in your situation. The ideal situation is for you to have a few other cadets that are with you that you kind of take under your wing and more or less help guide, and you help them get across the finish line while you're also trying to get across the finish line. It's probably a really good approach to look through.
I actually do want to ask, and I'll piece this in there. Your experience as a 500 that year, what were you doing different? Did you feel like a mentor your 500 year? Were you more of kind of laid back since you'd have to go to air science or anything? Which type of 500 were you going through that?
I definitely wouldn't say laid back. Now, there's an aspect to saying laid back in the sense that you try to let other people step up and take charge in areas that you might feel really comfortable with. But again, once you kind of figure out your weak points and really work on those, then your cadet leadership is going to realize that, as well as cadre are going to realize that, and they're going to stop kind of selecting you more or less, and they're going to expect you then to help level up the people around you and bring up the people around you. So yeah, I would definitely not advise, at least I wouldn't use the language laid back. Now, it's good to take a approach, as an observer from time to time and watch other people, sometimes even let other people, learn in their own right, which means sometimes letting them make a mistake or not trying to immediately save them every single time they're falling. You don't have to catch them every single time they fall, because it's, the one thing they're going to learn really quickly is if they do fall and they do struggle a little bit. So that can be a good place to be in as well as a 500. But no, I definitely came in full of energy, man. I was like literally just screaming, being loud every single morning. We were playing music in the heritage room, trying to get people energized. I had a good supporting cast of 500s as well. Like we were all good supporting cast, the main body of the GMC, just trying to help support them and get them energized every morning. So it was all of us playing music and getting excited, getting people hyped up in the morning. I'd almost equate to like we were all preparing to go like almost play like a game, kind of like you would like in the NFL or something like that, going out getting ready for a match or something like that. You just get people really energized, locked in, ready to perform, ready to show what they've learned, ready to step up and take on challenges and confront a lot of the noise and craziness that you're going to experience during Lee Lab. So you just want people to be really energized and excited to be there, not kind of just dreading the mornings because they're already tired. You don't want to give them any reason to be frustrated or angry. People are at their absolute weakest when they're really tired, they're hungry, they're on like 250 milligrams of caffeine, the only thing sustaining them right now. So they really need some sort of encouragement in those moments, usually to perform and figure out how to operate or how to think critically in challenging situations. So again, it's just bringing a whole ton of energy. So that was more or less my approach. The other side of that was preparation, talking to other cadets. So that entire summer, you get an incredible 3 months where all of your friends from the 200 class who got selected, they're going to be prepping for field training and having that occupy their time, and then they're prepping to be flight commanders or whatever job they had. You, on the other hand, you don't have to worry about air science and worrying prepping for any of that stuff. You don't have to worry about prepping for field training. So instead, what you can do is you can spend 3 months analyzing and figuring out what the best approach and what your plan of attack is going to be coming back that next semester. And also, not having air science is great. It's fantastic. It's really nice having that extra time back or having that time back on your schedule. If that allows you to, catch up on some classes maybe you were struggling with, great, use it. If it means that you were really struggling academically and it's now great study time for you, great, do that too. But if you can afford to be at the detachment longer, to spend some time, whether it's talking to other cadets or trying to be a mentor in those environments, asking questions, getting feedback from flight commanders for leadership, or if it's just hanging out and trying to clean up, or just again being a presence at the detachment. Those are all good uses of your time. Just I would also heavily advise use of 500 not to waste time. So don't spend so much time at the detachment that it becomes like a home for you. You don't want to be pulling 30, 40 hours a week, spending time sitting in the heritage room just talking to people, lazing around. Like that's not an effective use of your time. You want to be spending time with people in a meaningful way. You want to be making sure you prioritize that time to again give guidance, get feedback for yourself, step up in some of those extracurricular roles you might not have considered. Maybe that opens doors for you to do Arnold Air Society or the Maryland Honor Guard, or again any of the other extracurriculars that are available for you. So that can be a good pursuit for you as well. But try to find those areas and those areas of improvement that maybe you weren't looking for previously, and then use that time valuably to pursue opportunities that maybe you hadn't considered in the past.
Yeah, and morale is very big, especially coming in, into the flight in the morning heritage room. You're completely just drained. But I know personally, back then, I would look at the 500 in my flight or just around me and see them as a sign of this is basically almost a third flight commander in a way that I can look towards to really make it here, because they've gone through everything and they usually are always the beacon who is lifting the flight and kind of mentoring them to the right direction. So that's just another thing to think about. So as a 500, when you realize your current generation is way ahead of or is one step ahead of you, how do you feel about being, in the other generation? Did you feel a stronger bond with those people versus the ones who are now your POC training you, but you're with these new groups of people that were, just a year younger than you? However, did you feel more connected towards them?
It's a really good question. One thing I will say is kind of huge ideas. People think it's going to be really weird. It's only weird if you make it weird at that point. So if you're a 200 or 250 who becomes a 500, and most of your really good friends are now 300s and are flight commanders, let them do their job, let them learn, let them grow. You don't want to be an obstacle to that. You also don't want to create a special relationship between you and them that makes your new peers, the new 250s, 200s, while you're 500. You don't want to make them feel like they're lesser than you. You don't want to make them be put in a situation where they feel like there's a massive, aspect of favoritism. So in doing that, it's going to take you to have a great deal of humility and asking questions, and even regardless of whether you're older, that's going to be another thing. There's plenty of cadets in the detachment that are 200s or 250s who might be 28, 29 years old, and that can also be a challenging thing for them to get instruction and correction from someone who's 20, 21 years old. So it's kind of a similar vein as that. So it's finding that level of humility where you can bring yourself to ask questions and to be a part of that group and to really interlock with that group and find your people in your new, as you call it, generation. So you kind of find your people in your new generation and you help them to learn as well. Even if you think you already know what to do, even if you think that coming back for 500 years is going to help you very much, there's a lot of things you need to do as part of that. What I was saying earlier of kind of analyzing what your plan of attack, what your approach is going to be for your 500 year. Chief among those things is going to be making sure that you don't make yourself something that's above or greater than your peers. It's going to be making sure you bring yourself down to a status where you're the one asking the most questions. If anything, you want to sound like you're the one who, again, is most curious about how to improve, or looking for those opportunities for growth and things like that. You want to be a good example for the 200s, 250s, so they themselves don't come into their 200 year thinking they already know how to do everything and they're just checking the boxes to get to field training. You want to make sure that they're staying energized and enthusiastic. And by doing that, again, it's just going to make for a much better experience for you and also a much better experience for your peers. But that doesn't mean you never have to talk to your friends who are 300s. I had one of my close friends ended up being my flight commander immediately when I got back. And yeah, there's definitely some weird moments and things like that. But her and I both acknowledged, when we're in Lee Lab, we're in Lee Lab. I'm GMC being trained. She's a POC training. It's my job to make sure that she has the opportunity to train, and I'm not an obstacle to that. And it's her job not to treat me differently than those other cadets. So just like it's your job as a 500 to humble yourself and to continue asking questions and to be curious and to really just find your people and communicate and build new relationships with people in your new class. It's also the job of that 300 who's now a flight commander or whatever role they're in to also recognize a change in that relationship and not to treat you differently or not to put you in a challenging situation if you're, you're spending time with your new class or if you're also just trying to learn. So it requires a little bit of effort on both sides, but ultimately the message there is going to be humility.